Thich Nhat engaged Buddhism. Every day we do things, we are things that have to do with peace. If we are aware of our life, our way of looking at things, we will know how to make peace right in the moment we are alive. This is how Thich Nhat has lived his life since he was born in 1926. As a peacemaker, Han teaches us the essentials of practicing peace in a violent, restless, and troubled world. Han is best known around the world for letting mindfulness meditation be freed from the secluded Buddhist monasteries. Luckily, Han made the world's most individualistic religion accessible to the world, particularly to the average, cautiously adventurous Westerners. He has led many mindfulness retreats in Europe as well as in the U.S., where he has helped over thousands of individuals seek peace in their hearts. He also speaks to the individual's desire for wholeness and inner calm. As a Vietnamese monk and teacher, he was able to combine traditional meditative practices and active nonviolent civil disobedience to form engaged Buddhism. Han has written more than 75 books of prose, poetry, and prayers, which are not limited to Buddhist readers, but appeals to a wide audience. Thich Nhat was born in 1926 in what was then a French colony of Indonesia located in central Vietnam. At the young age of 11, Han realized that he wanted to be a monk when he was in the middle of a picnic at the Nan Son mountain range. Han had heard of a hermit who supposedly lived atop one of the mountains, and people said that a hermit is someone dedicated to becoming peaceful and happy, like a Buddha. With these words of guidance, Han climbed to that mountain, and the hermit eluded him. He was guided by the pure sound of water dripping in a well. When Han reached the well, he knelt down and drank the water. Han said that when he was drinking the water, that it was as if he was meeting the hermit face to face. A few years later, at the age of 16, Han was ordained as a monk at Tu Hu Pagoda, which was a city in central Vietnam. Starting in the 1960s, Han really began to expand his knowledge when he went to the United States in 1961 to study and teach comparative religion at Columbia and Princeton universities. Han had an opportunity to interact and learn with some of the most educated people in the field of comparative religion. Han's trip came to an end when he was invited home in 1963 to try and help stop the U.S.-Vietnam War. After returning home to Vietnam, Han and his fellow colleagues led one of the greatest nonviolent resistance movements of the century. In 1964, Han established a school of youth for social services. The school served as Vietnam's main training program for Buddhist peace workers. The group advocated a philosophy of decentralization for solving problems of agriculture, health, sanitation, and education, which had become widespread in Vietnam. The American press referred to the school as the Little Peace Corps. With the help of over 10,000 monks and social workers, the group helped build schools, health clinics, and rebuild villages destroyed by American bombing. Han and his followers sustained a dream through their years of war, envisioning a community where peace workers could meet and share ideas to make the world a more peaceful place. In addition to founding the School of Youth in 1964, Han also helped originate the La Boy Press, which became one of the most influential publishing houses in Vietnam. In his books and as editor-in-chief of the official publication of the Unified Buddhist Church, Han called for reconciliation between conflicting parties in Vietnam. Because of Han's outrageous ideas, his writings were censored by both of the opposing governments. In 1966, Han accepted an invitation from the Fellowship of Reconciliation and Cornell University to come back to the United States to describe to the world the aspirations and the agony of the voiceless masses of the Vietnamese people. Han had an action-packed schedule with speaking engagements and meetings where he pled for peace and spoke about a ceasefire. While Han was on his U.S. tour, both the communist government in North Vietnam and the non-communist government in South Vietnam banned Han due to his role in undermining the violence he saw affecting his people. Ever since Han was banned from Vietnam, he became a citizen of the world. In 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. was so moved by what Hanh had to say, he nominated Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize due to his lifelong efforts to generate peace. Hanh has made an impression on everyone who he has come into contact with. For example, when Thomas Merton, a well-known Catholic monk, met Hanh at his monastery near Louisville, Kentucky, described Hanh to his students by saying, "Just the way he opens the door and enters a room demonstrates his understanding. He is a true monk." Hanh then went to Europe and met with a number of head people, including Pope John Paul IV. Hanh pled to the Pope that cooperation between Catholics and Buddhists would help bring peace to Vietnam. In 1969, at the request of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, Hanh set up the Buddhist peace delegation to the Paris peace talks. Once the peace accords were signed in 1973, Hanh was still refused permission to return to Vietnam. Hanh then founded a small community 100 miles southwest of Paris called Sweet Potato. After his exile from Vietnam, Hanh organized rescue missions for Vietnamese trying to escape from political oppression. In 1976, Hanh led an operation to rescue boat people in the Gulf of Siam, but resentment from the governments in Thailand and Singapore made it impossible to continue. Therefore, the following 5 years, Hanh stayed at Sweet Potato in retreat, where he meditated, read, wrote, gardened, and occasionally received visitors. In 1982, Hanh left Sweet Potato and founded the Plum Village, which was a much larger peace farm, which was located on 80 acres of land in southwestern France. The village is a meditation community where people are involved in the work of social transformation and people could come for rest and spiritual nourishment. The residents of the village study Buddhism, help Vietnamese refugees and political prisoners, and take care of 1,250 plum trees whose crop earns money to send medicine to Vietnam. Even though Plum Village only houses 50 monks, nuns, and lay people, thousands from around the world still call it home. Short-term accommodations are available for people seeking spiritual relief or for activists in need of inspiration. Plum Village is a gathering of people of diverse nationalities, races, religions, and sexes in order to expose them to mindfulness and make sure that they are profoundly aware and appreciative of life. Plum Village has been around for almost 25 years now and has grown into a practice center which offers people the opportunity to look at their life more deeply. Thich Nhat has 3 main ways of life which are all interconnected: inner being, engaged Buddhism, and nonviolence. As he travels across the world and writes books, he tries to convey these ideas in ways which can relate to everybody. The first idea was inner being, which addresses the concept that all phenomena are interdependent and endlessly interwoven. In Buddhism, there is no such thing as the individual. No single part in the world can exist apart from all others. This means that everything is made up of other things, which becomes an endless web of combinations. This is the basis of the traditional Buddhist teaching of emptiness. When Thich Nhat says that something is empty, he means that nothing has any independent, permanent essence. Therefore, nothing can exist by itself. In other words, empty means that it is full of everything. For example, consider how we learn to recognize chairs. Our parents don't teach us the definition of a chair. Instead, we learn what a chair is by pointing at it or having our parents put us on it, which are chairs. At first, we do not distinguish the chair from all other visual images running through the brain, but gradually we begin to make the distinction. We learn what a chair is by learning to distinguish it from what is not a chair, because everything is interconnected to everything else. Everything depends on the totality of all. Therefore, everything is already inside everything else. Engaged Buddhism was founded by Thich Nhat as a way to address the social consciousness in Buddhism. The basis of this particular theory is the realization that every person is made up of all elements that are not herself. Han is saying that all the other people in human society are within each of us. Han's Engaged Buddhism is a cyclical process by which understanding the true nature of self betters our understanding of the true nature of society, because we understand that the self and society have no separate existence. The preservation of oneself is the same thing as the preservation of all. The improvement of oneself is the same thing as the improvement of all. The healing of one's own suffering is the same thing as a healing of all suffering. To clarify this idea further, Han came up with the 14 precepts of engaged Buddhism. Do not be adulterous. Do not think the knowledge you presently possess is changeless, absolute truth. Do not force others to adopt your views. Do not avoid suffering or close your eyes before suffering. Do not accumulate wealth while millions are hungry. Do not maintain anger or hatred. Do not lose yourself in dispersion and in your surroundings. Do not utter words that can create discord and cause the community to break. Do not say untruthful things for the sake of personal